Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's session of The Power of Now. Tonight, we're going to talk about, toxicity, hmm, something that impacts all of us. And I just want to share, when folks talk about, detoxing, most of the time they're thinking about the physical aspect of clearing the toxins out of our body. But because everything's connected, you cannot just clear the toxins out of your body without clearing the toxins out of your emotions, out of your mind, and even out of your spirit. So you need to be mindful of the toxins that you allow in, and you want to take preventive measures. So I first want to, talk about just detoxing from a physical perspective, and then kind of correlate that to a broader aspect of just our life. Now, when we talk about detoxing, which again has become really popular, and there's all kinds of uh, you know detox methods out there. People do. First of all, people also kind of use the term detoxing with fasting. They try to use them synonymously, but they're not the same thing, and they serve a different purpose. Mhm. Just for clarity, fasting is when you stop doing what you're doing. You remove yourself from the whether it's the food, mm, uh, and basically what it does is it prevents more toxins from coming in. Whereas detoxing clears out the toxins that are already there. All right, so fasting says, I'm going to stop eating, so therefore I'm going to reduce the toxins that are coming into my body. Fasting now, you know, uh, I'm sorry, detoxing now, I go through a very methodical approach to cleanse the body of the toxins in there. And like I said, there are many approaches to, detoxing. Then there's, toxins that come from the inside, our bodies. They're referred to in the physical, they refer to as endotoxins, and they're toxins that we absorb from the outside, exotoxins. Now, we we can consume those in different methods. So, for instance, uh, exotoxins when we get them through the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, and even the things we put on our body, so we can get them through our skin. Pretty much everywhere we secrete toxins are the same ways we absorb them. So you want to be mindful of, the air you're breathing. And in some cases, if you go outside, you live in certain places, you have no control over that per se, unless you're going to wear maybe a mask. Uh, you know, and the water, if you got issues with water where you live, then actually you want to use filters or buy spring water or what have you. But you can get toxins from again the water, the food you eat, the air you breathe. So those are toxins we get, we absorb externally into our body. Now, the same thing applies through other areas of our life. And remember, everything's connected. So the food we eat impacts us both mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Mhm. So the same thing, when we absorb toxic material, it in fact impacts us, like I said, through our eyes or through our ears. It impacts us physically and spiritually. The other level is when you decide that you want to go through a cleansing process and do a true detox, then, like I said, you may want to do a fast and along or prior to your detox. Uh, so you may fast, say, I'm gonna fast first and I'm gonna do a detox because I want to make sure I stop everything coming in. Now, when it comes to the mind and spirit and emotion, you want to do the same thing. Are you absorbing things mentally? Hmm? Through things that you may, say read, watch on TV, the music that you listen to. If you spend maybe a bit of time doing a little research to understand how the brain works, that when you listen to something or when you recite lyrics, say to music, it rewires your brain. So you may not have the conscious awareness that you are technically being programmed when you recite lyrics. So if you're reciting negative lyrics, it has an impact on your thought process. And our thoughts have an impact on our physical, body, as well as our emotions and ultimately our spirit. So if you want to lead what I like to say, a holistic, wholesome lifestyle, you need to be mindful of all aspects of the toxicity in your space. You also want to be, mindful that you're not the creator or the provider, deliverer of the toxins. So let's say, we got a new year coming up and you know what, this is the time where people say, oh, I'm going to make changes in my life. You know what, we know as a norm on average, say, I think it's 2 to 4 weeks, most of those goals will vanish. But let's say this year is going to be a new year and you want to start off fresh. Well, the toxins that you may have, hmm, in any one of those areas may actually prevent you from going to the next level. That's why we want to do that self-assessment where, you know what, you need to check yourself to say, what have I been thinking? What emotions have I been experiencing? You know what are some of my bad habits? Because remember, your habits, which you may consider bad, uh, are the result really of your thoughts, because your thought precedes your action. So if you have toxic thoughts, you're going to likely have toxic actions, and you determine what is toxic to you. So let's begin, first by looking at or doing a comparison to endotoxins, the toxins within our body. That's when we're talking about physical. But those same thing occurs when, like I said, we're talking about other areas. Those are the things like our belief system, because that's internally something really absorbed from the outside, but eventually the toxicity begins to develop internally. And it's the same way when we breathe in, bad air. You know, the air is toxic, but then it triggers things in the body where the body now, in its own way of trying to process things, may create additional toxins. So the same thing happens when you're talking about non-physical. You're basically talking about our belief system, our thoughts, you know, which then could become our, emotions. Uh, you know, so all of those things play a part in our overall health, because optimal health is a combination, is a cumulative, I should say, cumulative result of, all of our, like say, lifestyle choices, our environment, and our genetics. So when we're talking about, you know, uh, cleansing ourselves, then we got to look at all of our choices that we're making. So with that, you want to begin having the awareness of, yeah, what are the things that naturally that you're eating on a regular basis? Uh, um, what are the things that you're listening to regularly? What are the things that you're watching regularly? Mhm. Uh, you know what? Are you watching things that help you grow, or are you, watching things or absorbing things that are going to hinder your growth? Sometimes we do not see it initially, just like on a physical level, we don't see or the immediate impact of the toxins we take in. But we pretty much know if you're drinking soda every day, which is toxic, you may not notice it in the moment, but you continue to do it. And it is as we like to say in the health world, it's a bioaccumulative effect of that consumption. So after a while, it builds up. And it's the same things I share people with any system that, has a continuous, uh, input. of something that doesn't improve the system, that degrades it, sooner or later, something's going to occur. You know, you know how we like to, we all have that, you know, that time where the check engine light comes on. Well, I think seldom does that check engine light come on for something that just happened, even if it's the cause that triggered the light. What's beneath that cause has been something that's probably been, you know what, occurring for a long time. So it's the same way with, how we live our life from a physical or health perspective, from a purely physical health. Illness doesn't just occur. It is something that's been building up over a while. And maybe we haven't noticed it, or maybe we noticed something and it was simple, and we just ignored it. You get a slight pain somewhere in your body and you don't think much of it because it's, not an issue. Using a classic example that most people deal with is when you start having, say, digestive issues. When they initially start, you know what? They may just be, pain, in your stomach area. And then they gradually get worse. Now, what usually happens is we tend to think it's normal because we've normalized it. Oh, I've always felt that way. Well, the same thing happens in other areas of our life. We then continuously consume toxic material and now we normalize it, but it impacts, what, who we are. Some people say it doesn't, like for instance, when oh, somebody's logged on. I can't tell who you are, but glad to have you here. Mhm. Uh, please, like I said, as you you notice, I don't have my coaching partner here tonight, Mitchell, who usually manages the comments. Mhm. Uh, oh, okay. Well, there's Mitchell right now. She just popped in. Uh, and that's Adrian. Hello, Adrian. So, again, when you decide that you want, uh, to live a wholesome, holistic, healthy life, then you must become mindful of cleansing all areas of your life. Again, you want to be even mindful of, the people you associate with. And I know this is a hard one, but we were all told, probably as children by an older person, about the company that we keep. So, you know what? You want to be mindful. Are you in the company of people who are moving in a direction that you desire to go? Or are you in the company of people who are moving in the opposite direction? And are you going to get swept up in that current? So that's why it's really taking stock and having those moments where you're reassessing yourself, and reassessing what you want, what you're striving for, uh, what you like to experience in life, and then you begin to look around and say, "Am I on the same wavelength as those where with those I spend most of my time with?" And if not, then you need to start making adjustments. So people, say, well, how do I start? And like with everything, we start with having the awareness. Uh, and you start by just looking at, I'm gonna say each day, just be totally aware of, you know, uh, first of all, yeah, be totally aware of your thoughts, mhm, and your feelings, and kind of ask yourself, what are the triggers for those feelings? If you've ever had a moment in time where you just felt, say, sad for no reason, or maybe you felt happy for no reason, which is always optimal. That's where we want to be, is where you feel happy just because. But if you ever felt like you were in a mood but you can't really put your finger on what was the cause. It's probably something underlying, you know, that you may have consumed, you know, before. That's why they always say, you don't want to get caught up watching the news on a regular basis. Now, I used to went through a period where I was a news junkie, you know, almost like, yeah, I was addicted to it. I had to watch it every day. Uh, I was, at one point I remember being kind of glued to one channel and would have it playing whether I was, actively watching or passively listening. Either way, my brain was absorbing it. So you had to get to the point saying, okay, what in here, what in this news feed is helping me? Yes, it's influencing my emotions, but is it helping me? Is it helping me to become a better person? And once you begin to ask yourself those questions about the things that you come in contact with, then you have to make the decision as to, are you going to cut them out or are you going to minimize them? Pretty much what you're doing when you are, with your eating. Mhm. You, you know, you know, you mentioned, and I just see that Coach Mitchell just, posted something. I said earlier, individualized and something each person must identify within themselves. Yes, mental detoxification is an ongoing process. Just like, now check this out, like for the body, we have built in, like our liver and our kidneys, our sweat glands, those are all built in detoxifiers. So they will automatically help to keep the body clean. But sometimes they get overloaded. Now, with mental detoxification, hmm, I don't know if we have an automatic, a process for that. I'm thinking the toxins, they just build up, so we are constantly absorbing toxic content. It's going to build up. So if you add the toxic content that we're absorbing from, again, the things we are watching, reading, listening to, and you combine that with toxic, food, uh, air, water. Basically, we'll walk around with a body of toxicity. So, how do we think that's going to impact us? Your thoughts will be distorted. I mean, you know, they have done studies on where they've correlated, uh, people's diets with crime, and they're beginning to see that there is a correlation. Mhm. Uh, why is that? Because our body impacts our thoughts. Our thoughts impact our behavior. It's all connected. Mhm. And if we don't cleanse the toxins out of our entirety, our total being, well, think about a pond versus a river. A pond is contained, and if you ever went by a pond that didn't have any water flow, you begin to smell mhm, uh, the toxicity. And yes, I'm assuming it's Adrian again. Yes, it's all connected. Actually, break down to you, everything in the universe is connected. So if you don't believe me, if you would remove all the trees, it will actually impact the rotation of the earth, which then impacts, you know what, any bodies in the, surrounding, uh, the surrounding area of the earth. It's all connected. We in the Western world, we have tried to separate things, compartmentalize, categorize. And a place that's really common is if you look at in the healthcare, where you go through five different doctors to look at five different things. But now they're coming to a point to realize that's not work, ever not noticeable. So going back to, like I said, say starting now, because this would be the best place to start is right now. And technically, now is the only time you can start. Whether it's 5 minutes from this now, you'll still be in the now in 5 minutes. So you're going to start now. And like I said, you want to start with looking at yourself, then looking at the spaces that you spend time in. uh, uh, and the spaces, and then I say the faces that you spend time with. Mm, all of those things, and you got to ask yourself, well, who am I? Who am I trying to become? Who would I like to become? And are these people, are the things that I'm doing helping me get there? Now, this is one of the things why I, encourage people, if you're going to do, you know, like if you're going to go on a spiritual journey, you have to also go on a physical or health and wellness journey because you need to cleanse the body to ensure that your mind is cleansed so that you have clear thoughts. You know, if you're doing meditation to help clear your thoughts, well, that will also help your body. And together, they'll help your emotions. And no matter which one you pick, it's going to impact one of the others. So you definitely just want to start, look at, again, everything in your environment. Uh, and let's say we start with the physical toxins. You know what? Um, you know what? Like, do you have an air filter? Do you need an air filter? Are you drinking filtered water? Do you need to? Hmm? And I'm just throwing out suggestions. You decide whether or not it is something that you need to address. And most, importantly, is look at your food that you're consuming. An advocate that we need to step away from the ultra processed foods because they are impacting us physically. And remember, if you're impacted physically, you're going to be impacted emotionally, mentally, and ultimately spiritually. And let's see, and if I just be in the comment here, and if or they do not complement our purpose, we have to, yes, release it in love. Thanks, uh, thanks how we are able to grow. Yes, that's how we're able to grow. And it's just interesting because Coach Mitchell and I were having a conversation earlier, and we use that same phrase about walking away in love. You know what? You know what? Most people tend to want to walk away with, I'm just done with this, I'm out. But the higher self says, if it's somebody I care about, I need to walk away again in love. Doesn't mean that we'll never be friends or, we'll never have a connection. But right now, I need to go on my self discovery journey, and being here is not conducive to where I'm trying to go or who I'm trying to become. Uh, and it may seem harsh because it's not common. Yet most people will follow. Uh, I would say most people. We know a lot of people, maybe most, will follow some spiritual leader, and all spiritual leaders have done that. You know? And you notice that all spiritual leaders will take time with their mental and physical, body. So we know it's necessary. We have a hard time adhering to it. Now, why do you think that is? Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, so it's not the normal narrative. So it is quite, yes, absolutely right. It is not the normal narrative. Um, and just going back to, against, say spiritual teachings or spiritual leaders, they pretty much will always tell us, they've always told us that, they are no different than we are. But we don't absorb that. So it gives us an out from not being who they are. Does that make sense? See, it gives us the out. But if you go and look at pretty much every teaching from a guru or a spiritual leader, they'll pretty much tell you that they're really no different than we are. but we don't want to practice, and we give ourselves the out by making ourselves think that we are different. Remember, all things are connected. Mhm. So, where did I leave off? Again, we talked about the endotoxins, the exotoxins, and these are the same things that apply to our physical uh, or body, detoxification. And I'm just using that same format as we look at other areas. Uh, like I said, when we're going to fast, if we're going to fast from to cleanse our mind, well, we want to look at what are the things that we are absorbing mentally. Now, here's kind of the catch. Do we have the awareness that certain things are not good for us? Mhm. You know, that certain things may not be healthy. Mhm. Uh, because if we're enjoying something, we probably don't see it as being bad. And that could become problematic because we will continue with consuming those things until something in us breaks or until the engine light comes on. So, but you want to look and say to myself, well, what's going to make me a wholesome, healthy person? Mhm. We all know that we need to eat better. Then you ask yourself, if you're not, then be honest with yourself, why am I not eating better? Mhm. I believe spiritual growth produces, and this from Adrian, produces that awareness more and more. Yes. And that's just the other thing too, this kind of hit me more from a physical perspective. And I've been, sharing this with others on our health and wellness platform and in some of the groups that I belong to, that when you decide to change your diet, after a certain point is this tipping point, and I share that your body, it's like its memory gets triggered and it begins to seek out what makes it thrive. Because I think the memory in your body may have may have been lost because we have just inundated it with all kinds of, as they call it, industrial produced edible food, i.e., junk food, to the point where like we're familiar with Alzheimer's, so that when people lose their cognitive abilities, but same thing in the body. After a while, the body just doesn't, you know, has lost its ability to determine what it needs and what it wants, or have a hard time conveying it. So, but when you start to change your diet, and your body will get to a point where it will wake up and you will no longer crave all the junk food that you were consuming. You know, it's a process, but I think there's a tipping point, and that's where something almost becomes like, say, a lifestyle. So you don't even have to consciously think about it. Your body just knows, I'm not going to consume that. I no longer want it. It's no longer, and this is something that's interesting too. It's things that we talked about early on about how we identify ourselves. See, you get to a point where you identify yourself as a healthy person, no longer as a person trying to become healthy. That tipping point where you find yourself as a healthy person. And the same thing to Adrian, to your point, it happens in other areas of our life where, and it doesn't mean that, just because I identify a healthy person, that's end of the journey. No, you're also in that same process. You realize that the journey is it doesn't end. You just keep becoming better at it. Mhm. So same thing with our spirituality. You're going to keep seeking more and more, and at the same time, you're constantly cleansing out all of the stuff that doesn't fit with your new identity. That's it. Everything, even all stuff that we talked about, it's all connected. Um, yes, as well as unhealthy habits. Uh, y- and actually develop a disdain for those unhealthy foods. Yeah, it's you know, actually, it's kind of magical uh, how you get our bodies are designed. What? One of the things that I say again, how like again talking about how things are connected. One of the things that I recommend to people too is, which I found my experience, when you start learning, say how to garden or develop a relationship with nature, with plants, however it may be, somehow in most cases that's going to help you develop a better relationship with yourself. And I kind of think on a spiritual level that we are then reminded of our connection to that other thing we call life. So again, it all comes together. Like I said, you know what? The physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. Let's see. That's the key. Taking a step at a time for improvement. Yep. Which is something else that I always recommend that. Again, don't focus on perfection. Just focus on progress. And progress comes differently for different people. Mhm. Yeah. Uh, I just advised someone last night is asking, well, where do I start? I kind of say, kind of jokingly, you can only start from where you are because where else could you start from? Because if you go someplace else, you'll still be starting from where you are. So start now. Again, just funny how things are. Don't look for some special place to start because you'll still be starting from where you are. And then I gave some tips that apply to everything, and this even applies to tonight's discussion. One of the things that you probably heard me mention before is you want to create the environment of the person you are trying to become. Mhm. So if you're trying to become a healthy person, you want to make sure you have healthy foods in your space. You want to develop a healthy mental state, then you want to put healthy mental things in your space, which is why you will see, say positive images around. Now, you can have all the positive quotes in your space, the posters, the whole thing, and still not experience a positive mental state, possibly because you're eating junk food. Because again, if you're eating junk foods, that junk food is going to impact your mental state and emotional state. So even though you're surrounded with positivity, you're still going to find yourself off balance. You know, so when you want to try to cleanse, uh, say yourself, or you go on a spiritual journey, and this applies, doesn't matter what your religion is. I think this applies to everybody, even those who are, say non-religious. That journey that you take, it's about reconnection. And you guys may have heard me say this, uh, that in order to reconnect, we have to step away. And I know it sounds maybe it's kind of we'll say that doesn't make sense. That I need to step away in order to connect, but we always need to take time to ourselves. And being alone doesn't mean that you're disconnected. Being alone is taking time to breathe, allowing your thoughts to come into play. You begin to observe, become the observer of everything, even the observer of your thoughts. And then you allow yourself to kind of connect or reconnect. Uh, you know, uh, and like I said, if you were to read the story of any, again, I go spiritual leader, you will find that they've all, in some cases, disappeared. Mhm. They took a journey alone. And where did they mostly go? they usually went into nature, whether it was a cave or a desert or what. I don't care who you read about. They've always went someplace that there's a natural connection. Hmm? You never really heard about anybody hanging out in a New York building, because concrete just doesn't do it for us. But we all have that need to connect. So when we step away, it's for us to really find out who we are. So it allows us to reconnect completely. It allows us to cleanse ourselves now, of the toxins. You know? Oh, and thank you for that response, Adrian. Mhm, mhm. Which again, what Adrian just said, that's deep. Step away to reconnect. Yes. But we live in such a fast paced, nonstop. We have become conditioned that we're supposed to stay busy, that when we're not busy, we feel uncomfortable. We even start to think, okay, am I forgetting something? We have forgot to take time to breathe. And breathing is also part of the cleansing process. So we want to truly detoxify. We want to make time to breathe. And I talk about again how things are connected, taking deep breaths where they say you're now inhaling the life force. Different cultures have called it different things, but you're now inhaling the life force that sustains us. That then calms the body. The body will then, calm the mind, or you can say vice versa. And in that calmness, it's where we can, connect to our own, say, spirituality. And all you had to do was learn how to breathe. Because most of us, we walk around all day, taking, you know, as I say, some of us don't even realize we're not breathing, but you get caught with those short breaths where you're, breathing from your chest area. I'm just curious, how many times, how often have you actually stopped and just said, oh, and just took a deep inhalation? You do that a couple times, and I guarantee you're going to feel better because our bodies were designed that way, which is again something about this whole journey of you know, uh, say detoxifying. Is that I'd probably say 95 to maybe 99% of it is built in. We just have to tap into it. You know, um, say again for when you're detoxifying the body, you can go out and buy all kinds of products off the shelf, or you can tap into the body's own mechanism for detoxifying. And that is just, working on your uh, liver health, working on your kidneys, breaking a sweat, actually just jumping around. Mhm. Uh, I would jokingly say, if you haven't done the hokey pokey since you were a child, this might be a good time to do it because just that movement will help your lymphatic system, which will help in your detoxification. Now, you can go out and buy stuff, but there's a pretty good chance you run the risk that you're really putting more toxins in your body, especially if you're not reading the label. Mm. Um, so, yes, let me just go back and look at some of the comments. Uh, yes, Coach Mitchell said, yeah, yep, they saw a place in nature to reconnect with God and themselves. Yeah, I mean, that's why, and this goes back to just the point I said before. When you develop a relationship with nature, it's kind of difficult not to develop a healthy relationship with yourself. And whether that's sitting in the park on a regular basis, whether it's gardening, you know what, you know what, like I said, gardening indoor, outdoor, it's a journey, you know, but it still plays out the same way, you know, where, like I said, it's kind of like you cannot help it. Uh, so yes, to Coach Mitchell, to your point, to confirm, yeah, they mostly sought out a place in nature in some form. And yes, Adrian, it is. It's like a reset, which we need to do on a regular basis. Like people, especially I guess this time of year, as we're coming to the end of the year, and you know what, we know folks are going to goal setting mode. And I, like I said, I'm part of several health and wellness groups, and people are doing a different fast. And I'm beginning to notice that it's fasting. Well, they tend to use the terms interchangeably. They're doing a juice fast, um, or some type of fast when they think they're detoxing. Uh, and one of the things that I think is being missed is when you go through this process, and again, I'm gonna make the correlation, when you're doing a physical detox, one of the things that your body needs is nutrients. So it needs the good stuff, even for when you're, you know, uh, going from the fasting to the detox. When we're detoxing, let's say, say mentally or emotionally, we still need the nutritious stuff to get us through. We fast to basically stop the toxic stuff from coming in, but we need a level of nutrition, mental nutrition, emotional nutrition, spiritual nutrition to get us through. Now, let's see. Mhm. Yes, Coach Mitchell. Yeah, again, you can join us, on Inside Outside Wellness Wednesdays to get, specific healthy tips, and techniques to detoxify the body, you know, you say vis-a-vis the mind, and build that connection with nature. So, just kind of going back through a few things is, you know, we want to be aware, that's first and foremost. We want to look at what are the things that we're allowing in, you know, uh, both physically, because that's where most people, focus on, but we want to think about the physical. I'm sorry, we want to think about the mental and emotional and spiritual toxins as well. And you didn't decide, as you're going through this process, what aligns with who I am and who I'm, trying to become. And then as, I don't know if it was Coach Mitchell or Adrian, if one, so yeah, then you got to release it. Mhm. We need to especially do that when it comes to, I probably say our mental and emotional. Now, one of the things that I recently heard, um, I would say a doctor, but I can't remember what kind of doctor she was. She said, if you observe like infants have this innate ability to control their emotions, unless they have, they're dealing with some other issues that we may not see. But for the most part, if an infant is hungry, they cry until what? You feed them, and then they're fine. Mhm. If they want attention, they cry until they what? They get attention. So in other words, they control their emotions. Once their need is satisfied, the emotions then shift to something else. As we get older, we lose that control. But you want to consider, you know, what are the things that you are uh, able to control coming in? What are the things that you need to let go of? You need to release. So, is this thought, you know, serving me? Is this belief system serving me? Mhm. Or am I holding on to it because it makes me feel like I'm right? Mhm. As opposed to saying, you know what? I believe that because that's what I was taught. but it doesn't really align with me anymore. Mhm. The same thing when we're consuming stuff. Now, I want you to think about, are you cooking, preparing foods in 2023 based off of how maybe your family, whether your mother, grandmother, someone prepared food years ago? And is that preparation conducive to where you are and where you're trying to go? Or are you just holding on because, yeah, that's where my mother cooked it. Yeah, that's where my grandmother cooked it. So I cook it. Or that's what they ate. That's what I eat. Maybe it's time to rethink those things. So you want to assess your belief system, assess your diet, you know, assess your spiritual beliefs, your spiritual connection. Do they need your attention? Mhm. Uh, yes, as well. Yeah, we do hold on to those traditions. Yeah, and I think just to respond to that. Um, oh, okay. I see Marilyn has joined us. Hello, Marilyn. I can't see who joins. Uh, you know, we feel some kind of way if we sever traditional norms. We feel as if we're cheating. Uh, you know, we're cheating someone, but we have to really ask that hard question: Is are those traditional norms truly tradition, or are they things that people just did because that was the only way they could do them? You know, there's always the classic story of, what, the young child asking, a mother, why do you cook? I think it might have been a ham, or know, what, why do you cut off the end of the ham uh, before you put it in a pot? Mother says, oh, I don't know, grandma. It's our grandma cooked it, so let's go ask her. You know, so they go ask grandma. Grandma says, I've always done it because that's the way my mother, you know, taught us. And then begin to realize, well, her mother did it, or the great grandmother basically did it because she didn't have a pot at the time that was big enough for the ham. So she started cutting off the edge, the end of the ham. So you need to look at, are things tradition and you're holding on to them because you believe, again, this is where your belief system, those endotoxins, do you believe that you're going to hurt someone by releasing that tradition when in reality, it's not tradition. It was a need that was being fulfilled that just became, that's the way we do it. So you want to, again, look at your belief system, your thoughts, your emotions, uh, and you begin to go through the process of cleansing. And as I said a little while ago, maybe when you go through your cleansing, maybe you need to step away. It doesn't mean, excuse me, you got to pack up and leave, but maybe you just need to take time, to yourself and cut yourself away from things that they may be toxic coming in, or they're creating some level of toxicity within you. Mhm. Uh, yes, yep. Our belief systems, Coach Mitchell, our belief systems, also need to be assessed and reshaped. Absolutely. But we always tend, I was going to say, we tend to be afraid of doing that. And I really think, again, for some reason, we think we're cheating someone or we're doing someone wrong. I think there's a level of fear that if we change our belief system, we're doing something wrong. Mhm. Mhm. Uh, yeah. Another example, Coach Mitchell said how she used to cook, turnip greens and collard greens all day. You know, now you might ask, why were they cooking them all day years ago and only realize that you need to cook them an hour? Maybe it was their stove. Who knows? But you've come to that point where you realize you don't need to do that. So uh, I think challenging our beliefs on a regular basis, I think is essential to our growth because, you know, uh, our growth, like I said, they we can sometimes be held back with a belief, you know, that no longer serves us, just like we could be doing ourselves harm by eating something that no longer serves us. And I was going to say, yes, that question actually, a friend of mine had a question. He had posted a quote about, and I don't remember the exact quote, but basically, you know what? The pushback that you will get when you decide to make a decision to live your life according to who you want to become. And that is, and I really wish I could remember the quote, but and who said it. But it was really very profound because my response was, all you have to do is ask someone who changed their lifestyle, healthy lifestyle, or say their spiritual or religious beliefs that differed from their family, and ask them what was the blowback that they got, and understand where that comes from. One of the reasons, people don't like change, even if it doesn't affect them. Uh, but I think that's why we hold on to things that no longer serve us. It's one of the reasons why we hold on to things that no longer serve us is because we are afraid of the blowback. We're afraid we're going to hurt somebody. We're going to disappoint somebody. You know, you speak to people from certain cultures who their parents just expected them to be, you know, a doctor, but that's not what they wanted to be. I was just listening to someone last night, you know, who he actually became a magician before he moved into his career now. But he said that was disappointing to his family. You know? But you know what? Most people, like I said, they'll get over it. That part, I just said, connects to something else, connects to finding your authentic self. Mhm. And when you find your authentic self, I think it helps with the detoxification in every area of your life. When you live your authentic life with your beliefs, whether they are, uh, you know, physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual, I think that's the first step in the detoxification. Because I truly believe that when you are living authentically, you will care enough about who you are to do the things that will benefit you. And I don't mean from a selfish, but you will want to take care of yourself. It's just how things are. It goes back to what I'm saying, when you start eating healthy at a certain point, your body will just start craving, preferring the healthy foods. It will no longer prefer the unhealthy foods. When you start caring for yourself, when you start to say, I'm living myself fully, completely, authentically, you're going to want to take care. Your self care then goes way up on your priority. And like I said, I think it's just a natural thing. And because we tend not to live a natural lifestyle, because we are consumed with toxicity in pretty much every area of our life, it now prevents us from seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, tasting all the toxins. You know? It's why sometimes you ask, people will say, well, you wonder why Why do people live in all that drama? Because the toxicity has basically nullified all their senses, you know, that they're no longer even aware of the drama. Then they go from not being aware to now needing it. Mhm. So it becomes almost like an addiction. Yep. If you don't go within, you go without. No. You say, you know what? Yeah. What's the hermetic principle? Yeah. That which is up is also down. It's just it's interesting when you start to look at things and you really begin to see one how some of the greatest wisdom has been shared with us over and over, and how everything is again is connected. I share, I think, on one other night that if you look up the word healthy, you know, it comes from the same words as whole, holistic, and holy. Now, I didn't make that up. It's just, somebody knew something. So you think about it, it's all connected: the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. So, as we said, come to the top of the hour. So, as you go on your you know what, detox journey, you know, I highly suggest that, yeah, you could do it each area separately. You can start one and then move to the other. I I don't, as I say, I don't have enough empirical data to tell you the best approach. Um, or you can just decide now I'm gonna start, you know, cleansing. I'm gonna start detoxifying myself. But before that, or say right before that, or and along with it is I need to fast. So I can't detox any area of my life if I'm still bringing in the toxins. And sometimes, like I said, that may mean creating space between you and someone else, a friend, a family member, whatever. For the most part, I think people will get over it. And in some cases, when you detoxify, toxic people will just kind of choose to let you be. They won't be in your space. And I'll share this one last story about that. I never knew at the time how profound it was going to be to me later in life, but I've always shared the story of, having a fish tank as a child and used to go fishing in a local pond and, catching a couple of sunny fish. Now, you used to scoop them up in a plastic Tupperware, bowl, uh, and brought it home and put it in the fish tank. Next day, that sunny fish from the pond was gone. It was dead. Yeah. And my father explained to me, he said, you cannot just take a pond who's lived in dirty water and put him in a clean fish tank. He's just not ready for it, more or less. Mhm. So if you ever wonder why, as you begin to cleanse yourself, certain people will just go to the wayside because they cannot live in the environment of the new you. Mhm. Sometimes we hold ourselves back because we don't want to hurt people. So we refuse to move toward that authentic self. So again, I want to leave, on that note. And again, I appreciate everyone's, comments, and thank you, Coach Mitchell, for popping in. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Marilyn. Nice to have you guys back. Uh, I hope you join us tomorrow. Coach Mitchell, will be back as we do our Inside Outside Wellness Wednesday, where we really again focus on our physical health along with our connection to nature. So hope to see you tomorrow night. As they say, same time, same channel. Mhm. Uh, and again, any additional questions, just, you know what, send them to us or post it on Facebook or any comments. Post it in our group. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.